Alrighty, Questers, welcome back to another quest. This time we are going to be going over everything that has to do with the Lost Continent.
We're gonna go over fun facts, try some delicious food, and just tell you all about its history.
Yeah, this theme park land's probably going away sometime soon, so I think we might as well cover what we can while we can.
So join us on this quest.
So to start the story of the Lost Continent, we kind of have to start with the story of Islands of Adventure in itself. It is Universal's second theme park, opening in 1999, in May of that year. The original planning for Islands of Adventure started in 1993, and the idea was supposed to be children's books brought to life. In Port of Entry, the original kind of concept and design was a family gets shipwrecked on this mysterious island, and then all of the kids' children's books come to life and they can come visit those islands. And so Universal was seeking out a lot of different children's book IPs for this park. That's why we have Seuss Landing. Originally, Marvel Superhero Island was supposed to be DC's Superhero Island, but that got completely changed. Toon Lagoon is actually kind of the only one that stayed the way it was meant to be. Jurassic Park was never part of the original plan, but when things for Islands of Adventure shifted, the whole scope of the park shifted. Instead of children's books, they decided it was going to be all book themed. So Toon Lagoon fits for Sunday morning cartoon strips, Seuss Landing fits for Dr. Seuss books, Marvel Superhero Island for comics, Jurassic Park for adult novels, and then basically we had the Lost Continent. That was based around old myths, legends, and fables, things you'd read in books, in history textbooks, all those sorts of things. And that's where we get the Lost Continent from. It's supposed to kind of be this city that time forgot, and it's actually three lands, well, it was three lands in one. So it was divided into the Lost City, which is what you see when you first step into the park, where the former Poseidon's Fury attraction is, and pretty much all the way up to Fire Eater's Grill and the main bridge. Once you pass that bridge, you're going to enter Sinbad's Bazaar, based off of the 7 Voyages of Sinbad, or Arabian Nights, or 1001 Nights, whatever you know the story of Sinbad from, that's what it's based off of. And that really didn't have anything going on with it. It was mostly a shopping area. We'll get more to it when we get to it. But it did host the 8th voyage of Sinbad's stunt show. And then the last section, the first thing to kind of get gutted and leave, was Merlinwood. This featured all of your Arthurian myths and fables. So think knights, dragons, and of course, Merlin himself. This kind of had the big e-ticket attraction in Dueling Dragons and was the Lost Continent's main focal point. But unfortunately, around the early 2000s, in I want to say it was 2006 or 7, when Universal announced that the Wizarding World of Harry Potter would be coming to Islands of Adventure, it was marked as the location that was going to close. But before we get to that, we got to start with the Lost City. So we're going to start talking about the Lost City. It's what you first see when you enter into the Lost Continent, heading from Seuss Landing. Of course, if you're coming from the other way, then you're going to see Hogsmead and Sinbad's Bazaar. The Lost City was the Greek god-inspired section. So when you first walk in, you're actually going to see a sea griffin, which is more of the Merlinwood, like Arthurian Nights and Fables. It is a creature with the body of a fish, but the top half of a griffin. They're basically in a lot of like family crests and stuff, and so that's kind of why it sits guarding the gates into the Lost Continent. That is the first thing you see. But when you round the corner, you're going to see Mythos, which we are not covering today, but we are going to cover in another video probably next week. So look forward to seeing that too. We're going to go on in detail of it. But just a little glance at Mythos. It is a nice, lovely restaurant selling Greek and Mediterranean food. It has been voted, it is the 10-time Attraction Magazine, or whatever the sign says, best theme park restaurant. And we've heard it's very good. We're excited to try it for what is probably our first and only time. So outside the restaurant, you can see a lot of Greek-inspired architecture, especially stone stuff. You can see, like, I think it's supposed to be Zeus's face with the water pouring out of it that kind of fills the entirety of the Lost City. On the other side, if you're looking from the port of entry into the Lost Continent, you see a man holding up the whole restaurant. That is supposed to be Atlas. Was one of the titans that Zeus rebelled against and overthrew in the original Greek myth. And his curse was that he had to hold up the 4 corners of the world. And so he is holding up Mythos. The last face I wanted to mention is Narcissus, who is a little lesser known Greek story. He is basically an arrogant hunter who rejected the advances of a nymph and was cursed to basically fall in love with his own reflection. So if you actually see his face, it is looking into the water and he is transfixed by it. If you look in the water, you might notice his face looking back at him. The last thing I wanted to mention about Mythos is the troll you can hear snoring. There are a lot of creatures and monsters of the night in the Lost Continent that were featured. One of them is a troll that guards a bridge, and if you go over around the backside of Mythos, you can hear him snoring at night or growling, wherever you want. It's really terrifying at night. Like if you go just you, it takes a while to get there and like nobody else is around, you think you're gonna get kidnapped. Like, it's full troll in the dungeon
There's no light.
moments going on right there. So we're now going to start talking about Poseidon's Fury, Escape from the Lost City, which was the big marquee attraction of the Lost City. Kind of tied the whole land together, was the whole basis for it. And it was weird. I call it an attraction because there's no other word for it. Poseidon's Fury was an attraction. It wasn't a ride, and it wasn't a show. It kind of existed in this weird focal point. The nearest like theme park equivalent I can make in today's day and age is the first part of Rise of the Resistance. So pretty much everything from when you step into the first communications room with Rey, all the way to when you board your little astromech escape pod, but it's not an escape pod, your trackless ride vehicle. Pretty much everything where you're like talking to people, you're like seeing animatronics and stuff like that. A lot of show effects going on. The beginning of Guardians, Cosmic Rewind, it was that sort of thing. And this ride took on a lot of different faces. The original name for it was going to be Journey to Atlantis. And this was kind of the, what I call version 0.5. So this was the preconceived notion. It basically featured an old crazy guy called the Keeper, who would lead you down to the Oracle. Oracles are a big part of Greek mythology. If you've ever read Percy Jackson, you know about oracles. You are still deciphering their prophecies to this day. And basically the Oracle would then lead you into Atlantis. You would meet Poseidon. He would be mad at humans for some reason. And basically he would try to destroy you. And before he destroyed you, the Oracle would then pop you back up to Earth and you would leave. Crazy. And that was the original idea. And then Islands of Adventure kind of hit a lot of budget cuts partway through the development of the attraction. And so they cut a lot of things. A lot of it was live actors were cut from it because once we got to Atlantis, we were supposed to meet this like Atlantean advisor named Neoprene. And he was going to kind of show us around, and that's when we would meet Poseidon and blah, blah, blah. And they also had what was going to be a elevator subsystem. So think of like Kong 360 3D, where you were going to board a sub, and then on the sides will be screens that have it look like you're going down into Atlantis, not like you're just walking through what eventually would become known as the vortex leading you to Atlantis. So one of my favorite fun facts to share about the development of Poseidon's Fury is how they went from the name Journey to Atlantis to Poseidon's Fury, and that has to do with a lawsuit with SeaWorld. So SeaWorld and Busch Gardens had a water park. I think they still have it, but it was called Adventure Island. And they basically submitted a claim stating that Adventure Islands Islands of Adventure was too close to the name Adventure Island, that people would get confused and business would be hurt because of it. Adventure Island's a water park, so I don't know why they thought a theme park would like confuse people. But this lawsuit also happened at the time that SeaWorld was developing its own Journey to Atlantis ride. And so basically the settlement was Universal got to use the name Islands of Adventure as long as the trademark for a theme park ride called Journey to Atlantis went to SeaWorld. That's why late in development they changed it to Poseidon's Fury. Poseidon's Fury opened with the park in 1999. It was a opening day attraction. And I think primarily is why we use the word attraction as the broader umbrella, because it was weird. What Poseidon's Fury became in the beginning was about a 15-minute walking tour / show that you would go on where the kooky old man Keeper still remained. And he would take you down into Poseidon's temple, where you would still meet the Oracle, and instead of taking a sub down, the Oracle would open the vortex. Basically, she would choose your group and show you the wonders of Atlantis. And what the vortex was actually really cool. So the vortex was a 18-foot wide, 44-foot long water tunnel that basically had 40 high-powered water jets pumping 17,000 gallons of water at 100 plus miles per hour in a circle. So it would look like you're going through a little water walking tunnel, and it would be your gateway to Atlantis. It was a spell that had a cooldown time of 1,000 years, which really sounds like the DM didn't want the party abusing that spell a lot. So they just decided that the cooldown would be a ridiculously long time. I can guarantee you the party would still find ways to break that. And once you were down there, you would basically find out that Poseidon was trying to take over not only the Earth, but Olympus itself. He was in war with his brother Zeus, and he decided that he was going to take your party, recruit you into his army. I don't know how we became mer people. That's for Poseidon to decide. And so it was at that point that the keeper revealed that he was actually Zeus. Like, this sounds crazy to explain out loud. So once Zeus shows up, the story of Poseidon's Fury kind of remains unchained. Poseidon and Zeus start going at it. There's water effects, smoke, and Zeus is throwing fire. I don't know, lightning was the thing, but for this, he used fire. At Poseidon, they had 25-foot tall pyro projectors. This is like Universal didn't mess around with fire, and I think this is where it started, was in Poseidon's Fury. And eventually smoke would happen and you'd be transported back to the surface. And Zeus would save you, and the Oracle would be like, congratulations, you have saved our planet.
Come, celebrate with us.
And people hated it.
Oh, no.
It was really bad. People complained they had no idea why we were there going through this temple. Why the Oracle decided our group, of all people, why Zeus took too long to show himself off. And so in April of 2001, they closed down Poseidon's Fury for what ended up being, I think, a 3-month overhaul, where they basically changed out 85% of the story elements with it. And we got version 2 of Poseidon's Fury, and that's when we got Poseidon's Fury Escape from the Lost City. A lot of it still kind of played out the same. The vortex is still there. So to give you a brief overview, instead of just walking up to a random temple, we actually were going on an expedition with the Global Discovery Group. They were the ones that found Poseidon's cursed temple and decided to go on an archaeological dig. We basically followed an archaeologist named Elias Baxter and our tour guide, Taylor. It was great. They used a general neutral name because there was a live team member who guided you through it. And basically, Taylor would meet the group and he would tell us that, hey, we just gotta wait for Dr. Baxter. That's when we find out Dr. Baxter's missing. Taylor finds the enchantment that Dr. Baxter finds, and through reciting it, accidentally opens up Poseidon's temple and frees Darkion. And from there, we get led into another room, we get trapped. Taylor finds the Trident of Poseidon, gets a wish from it. We go down to the Atlantis chamber. Poseidon shows up. He starts fighting Darkion. They're in really cheesy outfits. It looks like an episode of Power Rangers, or like the original Clash of the Titans. I don't mean the early 2000s one. I mean the original. It's bad. Chaos ensues. Smoke, we go back up to the surface. This is my 3rd time explaining this ride. It opened to, I'm gonna be real honest, mixed reviews. It was beloved by theme park nerds and I think theme park historians, and it was a great thing to do in the park. It never really measured up to Dueling Dragons, Incredible Hulk Coaster, Jurassic Park River Adventure, and especially wouldn't shape up later on to things like Velocicoaster, Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey, and Hagrid's Magical Creature Motorbike Adventure TM. And so it struggled a lot. It went to a lot of open seasonally, things like that. COVID happened 2 years to open up after COVID, and basically it only opened up as a final last hurrah from Universal. They said, hey, this is going away forever. It's closing May 10th, 2023, and so go while you can. And Universal did send it out with great fanfare. They made shirts. You can see a lot of people wearing them. It's really cool and it's really fun. But it's gone, and it is sat empty for, what is this, April of 2026? So almost 3 years, it sat empty, nothing going on with it. You can still get pretty close to everything. You can't go into the queue, but the legends and the stories from Poseidon's Fury have not been forgotten. During HHN last year, the tribute store was actually themed to Poseidon's Fury. Some of the props and stuff from the actual queue of the attraction were brought into the Museum of Antiquities. And I think are still there right now, which is the gift shop outside of Mummy, and kind of took some of the Poseidon's Fury mythos and added it to the HHN mythos with Boris Schuster and stuff like that. We're very excited. Fingers crossed we get a Poseidon's Fury house soon. I'm looking at you, Chariot Permit. Pull through. And that was kind of it for the Lost City. There was one other quick service restaurant, which we will get to in a moment. But one thing I did want to mention is the Treasures of Poseidon gift shop. It was the gift shop that went with Poseidon's Fury. But one kind of cool thing about it is one of the only places you can see the version 1 Poseidon from Poseidon's Fury still around. Because in the original version, he was designed as like a slithery serpent man, almost like a sea monkey. Like if you've seen like drawings of sea monkeys, he kind of looked like that. He was a CG creature. Reminded me a lot of Beast Wars. You guys remember Transformers Beast Wars, right? Right? And then later on for version 2, he was transformed into like a normal, typical version of Poseidon, which is the human in Greek armor holding a trident. It's a fun little fun fact. You can also see kind of like a map with what Lost Continent looks like in universe, but we are going to cut to us trying Fire Eater's Grill. It is a Greek-inspired restaurant. It has gyros and Greek salads and chicken tenders, surprisingly enough. So we're going to cut to that real quick.
And the first thing that we have from the Fire Eater's Grill is the chicken stinger stuffed platter. This is crispy white meat chicken tender served with hot sauce and french fries. You can get this as a platter, which is just the stingers and french fries for $16.29, or you can get this with french fries, fountain drink, and the stingers for $20.79. This is annual pass holder eligible. And here we have the crispy chicken gyro combo. This is cucumbers, onions, tomato, lettuce, tzatziki sauce on warm pita served with french fries. You can get this as a combo or platter. The combo comes with a fountain drink for $17.99, or the platter, which does not come with a fountain drink, for $13.49. These are annual pass holder eligible.
Oh.
It's too close to me, guys.
My chair was too close to you. There's a difference.
Is there really a
Am I about
difference?
to eat chicken tenders with a knife and fork?
Like,
Full disclosure, we have had these before.
yeah,
I also think we've covered them in videos before too. The chicken stingers are a staple in Lost Continent, so I had to get them. And then Ellie just loves the gyro.
I'm a big gyro fan. I love pita bread. And this is always really good. I never really ever have a complaint with this. The bread is always really warm and fresh, and all the ingredients that are on it, tomato, cucumber, lettuce, are always pretty typically fresh. They're pretty well done today. It is later in the day, so the later in the day it gets, obviously the less fresh it's going to be, but it's still relatively good. It's just taking chicken tenders in mind, but the classic gyro is also very delicious. Like what is that meat called? Is it just falafel? Am I wrong?
Falafel, lamb.
Lamb? Is it lamb? I think it's lamb, but that's also really well done and pretty good. I just like the chicken tender ones to fill me up a little bit more. The french fries are always thick, salty, yummy. I got the honey mustard and dip it. I'm like, oh, it's delicious. Everything's always really fresh. Has a really nice, refreshing flavor and taste. And I always have it a 5 out of 5. I've never had a bad gyro here.
The chicken stingers are good. You get a good portion. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. About 5 on mine. And it's a good portion of fries too. You get ranch or blue cheese. I wish they had like different dipping sauces. You used to be able to get tzatziki with like pita chips. They're really good. They're just covered in like a hot buffalo sauce. They're like a good theme park spice to it. So like I do need water while I eat these. This is mostly just one of those fun universal things. It's gonna get a 4 out of 5 for me, just for being a good version of what it is. but not what it is not really something fun.
It's simple. It's
Yeah.
easy. I think the gyro is definitely where they shine. It's very different. It's not always. I don't feel like gyros are everywhere in theme parks. So
I was like, I can't even think where you get gyros
I
besides.
think the most unique place here is Mythos is very good, and then I think the most unique place is the kebabs. I don't feel like that's very typically theme park is kebabs. Just have to be grilled, unless it's like a festival.
There is in Disneyland, you can get kebabs year round. Because they have, in their Adventureland, they have a barbecue place where you can get kebabs.
I haven't been to Disneyland.
Since '03.
I was born in '03. No,
Right, like was it right before you moved down here?
I was 10.
So 13. Yeah, so I've been to Disneyland more recently than
So
you.
13 years.
Please
That's
like
wild
and
to think
subscribe
about.
if you want Disneyland content.
Yeah, guys, it's a lot of money to go to California.
But we really want to do things like Disney Channel night.
The more of you that watch, the more of you that subscribe, the more of you that follow us on all of our social media. We are everywhere at Parkbusters, and I mean probably everywhere, except for Snapchat. But I have a Facebook, so there's PQ Facebook, Threads, Twitter, Instagram, Patreon.
That directly helps us. Now that we're done with the Lost City, we're going to head over to the next little segment, which is Sinbad's Bazaar. This was the area that I think I had the hardest time finding fun facts for. There wasn't a lot going on with it, and there's not a lot going on now. Mostly existed of a stunt show, shops, one eatery, and a fountain that gets you wet. So yeah, Sinbad's Bazaar is themed after Arabia Nights, The Seven Voyages of Sinbad, 1001 Nights, you name it. And it's a Mediterranean-inspired area. Think of like the Morocco Pavilion in Epcot, stuff like that. And it, in its heyday, had a ton of shops. This is where you bought a lot of your merchandise for the land. That's why it was called Sinbad's Bazaar, because it was like a little Mediterranean shopping center. So one of the cool things they had was a magic shop, which eventually became a year-round Halloween store called All Hallows Eve Boutique. That kind of was like a year-round tribute store themed to Halloween. They'd occasionally switch out the displays and such for it. They had fortune tellers. You could at one point buy swords and stuff in what now sells How to Train Your Dragon merch. And once they got rid of the swords, they switched it to dragon merch. And then it turned into How to Train Your Dragon merch. They had like antique coins. It kind of reminds me of like all of those little flea market type areas you see when you travel abroad and stuff like that. Had that kind of vibe to it. And it also had Desert House Kebabs, which is the other major quick service area in the Lost Continent. It serves kebabs. I think more gyros. Are there more gyros?
At the kebab place?
Yeah.
No, just
Okay.
kebabs and hummus.
Just kebabs and hummus. We are not trying it today for this video. We decided to go with Fire Eater's Grill, and it filled us up a little bit too much. But we did try some of the food in our new snacks at Islands of Adventure to try out. We are going to give you a little teaser here, and you guys can go check out that video. Not the worst thing I've ever had. Feels like I'm eating cinnamon. We're busting out the Lay's.
I don't like cinnamon.
That's really weird. I love cinnamon.
We're using our Lay's from earlier.
The pizza dog hummus combo. You guys ready to hear me mispronounce some names? It's time to talk about the 8th Voyage of Sinbad stunt show. The 8th Voyage of Sinbad was a stunt show that kind of anchored the entertainment in Islands of Adventure. There was a pseudo show in Toon Lagoon. It wasn't a stunt show. This was your more thrilling entertainment option, was the 8th Voyage of Sinbad if you weren't looking for a ride. And it was simply just a fun, zany adventure with Sinbad, Kebab, his sidekick. I'm pretty sure I pronounced that wrong. Let me know in the comments. Spelled out phonetically. It's not going to help me now. And basically, they were defending the Princess Amora from Miseria, who looked a lot like Maleficent. I think that was intentional. So it's kind of like Sinbad versus Maleficent. There were cool stunts, some funny jokes. A lot of it didn't age well, apparently. It was never really that entertaining. And pretty much the same thing once the Wizarding World of Harry Potter Hogsmead opened, it really just lost a crowd. I think that's true of most things in the Lost Continent. I mean, I'm guilty of it too. My family first came for our trip, I want to say the Christmas of 2017 to 2018. and we skipped over a lot of it. I mean, we could have gone into Poseidon's Fury. We could have done the Sinbad stunt show that might have been closed by the time we came. And we just skipped over it. We kept going to Harry Potter because that's the reason we booked a Universal trip. And so, unfortunately, one of the Universal saving graces was also one of its downfall. But one of the cool attractions that I love is the talking fountain. There is a fountain right outside what used to be the entrance into the 8th Voyage of Sinbad stunt show. And it yaps with you. If you get close enough, it'll spray you with water, and it actually talks to you. It's got some magic to it. It'll ask you questions, where you're from, kind of tell you jokes, things like that. And then once they convince you to get close, we'll splish splash.
Little splish splash. Taking a bath.
And that was Sinbad's Bazaar. Well, is Sinbad's Bazaar. It hasn't closed yet. Big asterisk on that yet. I would like to say that everything I'm about to say from here on hints about a certain kingdom that is beastly is all conjecture. None of it has been confirmed by Universal or Disney, but we all basically know. So we're going to talk about it. So one of the fun facts of the theme park world and my theme park Roman Empire is Beastly Kingdom. For those of you that don't know, Animal Kingdom was originally supposed to kind of be a little bit of a timeline going from right to left. We had on the right the now extinct, pun intended, Dinoland USA that was supposed to show us all about the creatures that roamed our Earth in times past and since. And then of course we would get Asia and Africa that would show us the animals of today with the safari and a lot of the animal encounters and stuff like that. And then to the left, where Pandora is, prior to that, Camp Mini Mickey, was supposed to be Beastly Kingdom, a little land that was supposed to show us all the animals from myths and fables. And if you think about it, maybe the future. That's where the timeline thing was headed. But Animal Kingdom was supposed to show us extinct animals, real animals, and mythical animals. It's why we did eventually get the Expedition Everest ride. This isn't an Animal Kingdom history video though, so I'm gonna get to why this is important for Islands of Adventure. In Animal Kingdom's development, basically they ran into a problem. They were building a theme park and a zoo, and Michael Eisner gave them a theme park's budget. So it didn't account for all the upkeep, maintenance, and purchasing of the animals that would eventually make up the safaris of Animal Kingdom. So shortly into development, they had to choose either Dinoland or Beastly Kingdom. So Michael Eisner decided to cut Beastly Kingdom since it was going to cost them around $300 million was what reports say. But the idea for Beastly Kingdom was it was going to be divided into two distinct lands, a good kingdom and a bad kingdom. And in the good kingdom, you would have an encounter with a unicorn, a water boat ride themed to Fantasia, and on the bad kingdom side, you would have a castle slash mountain ride where you basically would be stealing treasure from a dragon. This would be an inverted coaster, so you could feel like you're flying through the castle, and you would come face to face with a fire-breathing dragon. It was going to be one of the biggest animatronics ever built. Michael Eisner decided to put Beastly Kingdom on a back burner, and the Imagineers supposedly got upset about this and hopped over to Universal as they were developing Islands of Adventure. And this is what gives us Merlinwood, because a lot of the proposed ideas from Beastly Kingdom did manage to find its way into Merlinwood and the Lost Continent. The next segment is going to take us to a extinct area already, but nonetheless one of the anchors to the Lost Continent story, which is Merlinwood. It was our Arthurian knights and dragons based around the man himself, Merlin. And the theme of this was kind of basically dark magic had taken over the land. So one of the first things you would see when you walked into Merlinwood was the Enchanted Oak Tavern, which was the main indoor sit-down quick service restaurant. Served all sorts of barbecue food like chicken. I think they had some burgers and stuff like that. It took me a while to find menus, I'm not gonna lie. But it had, as its facade, was a giant oak tree, missing feathers, but the roots were shaped into the face of a person. And that person was actually Merlin himself. The story goes that he ended up trusting Nimue, the Lady of the Lake. And the story was that the Lady of the Lake ended up trapping and cursing Merlin, turning him into an oak tree. And people carved out a restaurant inside of it. This restaurant, when the Wizarding World of Harry Potter was announced, would be shut down and later turned into the Three Broomsticks. But a lot of the layout and stuff remained the same, including the attached bar, because the Enchanted Oak Tavern had a bar attached to it called the Alchemy Bar. Nothing fancy there. It was really a lot like the Hogshead, where it was just certain beers on draft that you can get poured for you, maybe like a cocktail. Unti un. I've also seen reports that there was a roaming Merlin that would come into the restaurant, which is weird because that was also like the story of the restaurant was that you were eating inside Merlin that was turned into a tree. Like I said, I've seen one report on it, just wanted to mention it. One of the other distinct areas of Merlinwood was the fairy forest that housed the Flight of the Unicorn ride. It was a kiddie coaster that was basically themed around adventurer found a unicorn horn from an adolescent unicorn and basically figured out how to charm it to help carts fly. So it's a roller coaster for kids. And this was kind of the good kingdom side. Kids would come, ride Flight of the Unicorn, and it lasted a good long while, but it was, of course, shut down and turned into Flight of the Hippogriff, keeping a lot of the theming and just being a hippogriff instead of a unicorn. But the big e-ticket attraction, something I regret never getting to ride, I think about daily, and I miss it, is Dueling Dragons. This was the big coaster for Islands of Adventure. And I hear what you're saying. We also have the Incredible Hulk coaster, which was an opening day attraction. And you are right. Me screaming at myself. But what's better than one really cool coaster with speed and inversions? Two coasters with a lot of speed and inversions.
Does this sound familiar to anyone who's been to Epic Universe since it's opened a year ago?
Well, it's gonna. So, the story of Dueling Dragons centered around the dragons Blizzrock and Pyrock, a blue and red dragon, respectively. Blizzrock, who breathed ice, and Pyrock, who breathed fire, and they were at war with each other, basically coming to the castle in Merlinwood and trying to take it over. The queue for this ride had enchanted stained glass windows that showed you the story, narrated by Merlin, who explained that he was trying to keep these dragons at bay and eventually failed. As you went through the queue, you would see Merlin's books, spells, you would see the victims of Blizzlock and Pyrock, and then finally, the thing that made this ride so unique was you would reach a wall that had two paths in front of you and said, choose thy fate. And from there, you would decide whether you would board Blizzrock or Pyrock, the red and blue dragons, and they basically were your only safe way out. The only way to avoid the dragon is to ride the dragon.
Da da da.
So once you chose your dragon, you would basically board them, and it was a hanging inverted coaster, and you would duel. Both coasters would kind of launch simultaneously, and you would zip around the track, and then you had 3 near-miss encounters on this ride, where you basically would come within 18 inches of the other vehicles.
That is so insane to me. 18 inches is not a lot.
That's probably like the length of this table. It was not a necessarily like high speed coaster. It really only reached, I think, 55 to 60 miles per hour. The tallest point you can get is on the Blizzrock track, where you would reach 95 feet and drop. Pyrock, you only reached about 60 feet at its highest point and dropped. But it was insane, and the dueling thing just drove people in crowds. They loved it. It was great. And then Universal putting only 18 inches of clearance caught up with them. That's why we have metal detectors. Look up the stories. I'm not going to talk about it.
That's sad and not fun, so we will not talk about that.
No.
But
I will talk about the science of the dueling.
Now that's fun and educational.
So the coasters, when you got on them, as you were going up the lift hill, they would actually weigh each side of it. And based on the weight difference, they would launch the coasters at different speeds to make sure that you met up at those dueling moments in a precise and orderly fashion. The queue for this ride also had a lot of great theming and unique details that I don't think you're ever going to see in a queue again, because it was so dark. Basically, you went through 2 different rooms towards the end of the ride where each of the dragons had claimed their victims. The first room you went through was the Pyrock room, where Pyrock literally burned knights into the wall, where you can see their skeletons and their armors fused in the cement there. And then on some of them, they had a nice little riddle about how they died. I'm guessing fire. The next room you went through was the Blizz Rock room, where you could see his icy fangs had come in and just basically frozen everything in there. They had skeletons in their armor hanging from the rafters that were frozen there. It was actually crazy. And then when the Wizarding World of Harry Potter came, Dueling Dragons closed down in about mid-2009 to start a refurb, and in 2010 officially reopened as Dragon Challenge. This was a Harry Potter rethemed Dueling Dragons, kept a lot of the same elements. They rethemed the queue to the Triwizard Tournament. This isn't really important for the Lost Continent part, but we are going to talk about it a little bit. They rethemed it as the Triwizard Tournament. Pyrock became the Hungarian Horntail, and Blizzrock became the Welsh Green Dragon from Goblet of Fire. The coaster still launched at the same time, but they never really met up in the same ways at the near misses, just due to a lot of the accidents that happened. This caused people to kind of stop liking the ride, and eventually the ride became kind of too risky for how much attendance it was pulling. So they decided to close it down, and that's why we have Hagrid's Magical Creature Motorbike Adventure TM, which I'm pretty sure is a better ride, but I still would have liked to have firsthand experience to debate that. And that's Lost Continent. That is everything that kind of existed in and out throughout the land, and its history, its proposed ideas, and stuff like that. But Universal has a lot more to it than just each land of itself. There kind of is a lot of seasonal content that goes into Universal, including our favorite after-hours event in the world, Halloween Horror Nights.
Okay, guys, this cast member just gave us these really cute bands. It says it's my birthday, and this is their Harry Potter, and they're so cute. It doesn't want to focus. It just wants to look at you and your pretty face. There we go. It's so cute. I've never seen this before.
Have you not heard about these?
No.
Yeah, they now have them at every attraction.
What? That's so
They're like,
cool.
instead of like buttons that you get at Disney,
You get
cast members have bracelets, and you can ask, and they have like generic ones, and then they have ones. I think if you go to Hulk, you can get one. And it's like a Hulk themed one. Yeah.
That is so cool. This made my day. 10 out of 10. Cast members are the magic. Team members here, sorry. Team members are the magic.
And a lot of people don't know this, but Halloween Horror Nights used to take place at Islands of Adventure. Basically, after the attacks of 9/11, Universal saw a dip in theme park attendance, and they invested $3 billion into the Universal Escape thing, and IOA wasn't really working out. So they decided that following the event in 2002, they would have it take place at Islands of Adventure, retheming a lot of the queues and spaces into Horror Nights houses. And we're going to talk about that because Lost Continent was also invested in that. Not as heavily as some of the other lands, but there were some things. So during HHN 12, codenamed Islands of Fear, which featured the Caretaker, each of the lands was originally supposed to be themed to this girl named Cindy Kane, who had all of her toys come to life and take over each island. Now, another incident happened. They had to completely scrap this character, and that's why we got the Caretaker. But a lot of the ideas carried through. So, the Lost Continent became the Island of Evil Souls. Basically, there was this character named Nightmare. He would stand at the front by the sea griffin. He had like a little dragon puppet above him that would shoot fire. And he would basically guard the Lost Continent and try to keep y'all from entering. And the scare actors were orcs. It was a Nightmare King. It was really funny. If you look up some of these orcs, though, there were like centaur ones that kind of look like the like dinosaur costumes that have like a person riding on it. It's terrifying. It haunts my nightmares. Picture here, please. It was great. It was a fun scare zone. And it wasn't the only thing in Lost Continent that got theming. The fountain over in Sinbad's Bazaar became the Fountain of Evil, and it would tell guests dark jokes and even curse some of them as they walked by. And then the Enchanted Oak Tavern, in front of it, got Studio 666, which was a dance party scare zone. It was a dance party zone where basically there was a DJ playing music and you could come in and out of the bar.
Anyone who's been to Halloween Horror Nights in 2025 who experienced Club Horror, it was very similar to that.
Sans go-go dancers with weird lightsaber sickles. But the fun fact is that it was our last party scare zone until Club Horror last year at HHN 34. When we came over to HHN 13, no code name for it, it became the Immortal Island and kind of was a Dueling Dragons themed scare zone. You followed the Ice Queen and the Fire King. Lost Continent was divided in two distinct sections. You would see their kind of creatures. You would see like ice monsters and fire monsters kind of roaming around the land, and then the Fire King and Ice Queen themselves ruling over their individual areas. And in front of Enchanted Oak Tavern was Infestation, which was the director, the icon of HHN 13, his main stage show. Basically, guests 18 and older could sign up to star in the director's next picture. This happened in a theme park. The director would lead you to a chair. They would put on swim goggles and a mask, like a PPE mask, and they would put your head in a glass box. The director would spin a wheel and it would land on some sort of bug critter, and then they would put the bugs in the box.
Live bugs?
Yes.
And these were guests.
Yes.
Are you sure these were not scare actors?
No, you had to sign a waiver. It was specifically
That's
18 plus.
wild. Is that the only time that HHN or Universal for HHN has had you sign a waiver?
I think some of the Fear Factor Live stuff they did, also with the director, might have had a waiver. It was a lot of director stuff had
Bring back the
waivers
director.
involved.
You know what? Art the Clown and the director would be besties.
They would.
Also, fun fact, you do technically sign a waiver when you buy an HHN ticket.
They would make killer movies. The next year at HHN 14, codename What's Your Breaking Point, there were no Lost Continent contributions because that event took place in both parks, and so the Lost Continent kind of got looked over. But the following year at HHN 15, we got Tales of Terror with the icon, the Storyteller.
Ah!
And it was the last year that HHN was hosted at Islands of Adventure. And only time we got a house in the Lost Continent. And we're going to talk about it. So the house was called the Terror Mines, and it took place in Poseidon's Fury. Basically, the whole of HHN 15 took place on a different planet that the storyteller was kind of like telling us the story about. And it was a very demonic planet ruled by the Terror Queen. And she had this big mystical sword. And, well, she had people who needed to forge the sword. And where do they get the metals for this? In a mine, in the Terror Mines. Basically, the miners of the Dragon Forge were mining for materials, and they accidentally found creatures lurking below the earth called gnome rats that started to take over the mines and scare everybody out. And so guests would go into this house, and the cool part about it was mostly pitch black. And every 12th guest got a miner's hat with a little light on it. And basically, this was your only light source in the house. It was lit, but it wasn't like fully lit. It was very dark. And this house also had an RFID tracker chip in it that would cause different effects to happen, where it would like shut off, it would like flicker, it would change colors as you went through different rooms of the house. You got scared by stuff. It utilized a lot of the effects from Poseidon's Fury, so the water and the fire jets and all of it. I think the vortex was also open. I don't think the water was running, but I do think you were able to go through that tunnel, and it was kind of like you were going down into the mines further. It's a house I really would have loved to do. They only did the miner hat gimmick twice. They did it for the Terror Mines, and then later on they did it for people under the stairs under construction, which I want to say was at like HHN 25. But outside they had the Fire Pit Scare Zone, which was all themed to the miners of the Dragon Forge. They're basically orcs running around. There were a couple like medieval style pennants and banners set up, a lot like the Torture Fair Scare Zone from HHN 33. And the last but certainly not least contribution to HHN and Islands of Adventure was the Burning Oak, which was a retheme of the Enchanted Oak Tavern to basically a scary restaurant. By a scary restaurant, I mean it was open, it sold food, and the facade got spooky lights. And that is everything about the Lost Continent. It has not been forgotten. I mean, it's obviously still open, but a lot of the things are still kind of beloved, and finding other ways to pop up in Universal lore. The Hagrid's queue obviously has nods to Dueling Dragons in it. There is a Dueling Club sign that has a red and blue motif to it as you first walk into the queue. And then the last room, when you see like Hagrid's gloves, there's a couple jars up there that are specifically red and blue for Dueling Dragons. As I mentioned previously, the tribute store for HHN 34 last year was themed all to Poseidon's Fury and the Lost Continent, and a lot of that stuff has remained in the building. And the last thing I want to mention is a little house that my shirt is based off of, which is Dueling Dragons Choose Thy Fate, a house at HHN 32, which was themed entirely to Dueling Dragons and basically was taking you through a story of the ride. You would enter through the Merlin Wood Enchanted Oak Tavern facade, which was the big spooky Merlin tree. Go through the Enchanted Fairy Forest where Blizzrock and Pyrock had already started claiming victims. You would then go into the castle, see enchanted stained glass windows, have frightening effects, see Merlin's spellbook, and finally, you would reach a room that said choose thy fate, and you would choose what house ending you got, whether you went Team Blizzrock or Team Pyrock. It wasn't the best HHN house. It was a very beloved HHN house just because it let us experience a extinct and no longer with us part of Universal history. Alrighty guys, I hope you enjoyed listening to me yap for several minutes about the Lost Continent. I hope you learned something. Please let us know your favorite Lost Continent fun fact you learned down below. And until then guys, please make sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms. We are everywhere at Park Questers. We also have a Patreon setup where you can see behind the scenes content, get readies with Ellie, and more. And please make sure to leave a like and subscribe on this video so we can keep putting out more content for y'all. But until then, we'll see you on the next quest. Bye. The dungeon.
Can you hit me with that again?
Troll in the dungeon. Thought you ought to know. Everyone back to their common rooms, but our common room's in the dungeon. Shut up, Malfoy. Can you get off of Zuko thirst talk?
No. No, guys. Guys. Your intermission for Zuko moment. I just need you guys to understand.
Bleh.
Blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah.
I almost just got taken out by a pigeon. You saw that, right? You saw me almost get taken out by a pigeon? I just got bit by a squirrel. You didn't see it, but I got bit by a squirrel. Came over and he bit me.
You have rabies now? We just like post this video and they've announced the closing date.
Yeah, it's like immediately afterwards. We're like, and it's closing. And you're like, oh, okay.